on to item 1. I need to approve the minutes of the licensing and regulatory committee meeting held on the 21st of March. Can I have any more of that? Okay. Any apologies? Well, I've got the apologies book in front of me, and it's Councillor Nelson, Councillor Evans have sent in their apologies. Any from the floor? Okay, thank you. Is there any declarations of interest? Then swiftly moving on. It's down to number 4, tax licensing update quarter from Wolverhampton. If you could, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Good afternoon, all. Greg Bickerdike, Licensing Manager at City of Wolverhampton Council. So the first report we've got today is the final quarterly report of the last financial year. Before you, as I'm sure you're all aware, we have delegated authority to deliver the taxi and private hire function on your behalf. We ran a best practice guidance consultation, and that concluded in March. We had over 2,200 responses. That followed the Government Department for Transport's publication of new guidance that every licensing authority in the country has to have regard to. The results of that consultation will be before the committee. I believe the next date is October, with the proposed changes as a result of that. Wolverhampton approved all of the proposals. South Staffordshire has its own discretion, and it can choose to approve which ones that it would like to. But there'll be a separate report on that in future. Just to make you aware as well that we're actually 2 years into the delegation. It's 3 years in total. So we're just under a year away from the expiry date of that. We're working together, the officers are, in terms of bringing proposals to South Staffordshire Council to extend that, because, if you don't mind saying, I think that it's gone quite well and that there have definitely been benefits for the trade, and we've kept the costs, most importantly, we've kept the costs down for the trade from what they were or what they were going to need to rise to fund the service. I think that's everything for the final quarter. But obviously the next quarter is the next item. But happy to answer any questions on the last financial year. Thank you.
Are there any questions?
I think it's hard to believe, really, that it's been 2 years, 3 years since we agreed it. I think from a personal point of view, I think everything seems to have gone well. And I know some of the taxi drivers, they're the ones that we've had feedback from, they're quite happy. And it's nice to see that you're checking the vehicles. So I think that's the important factor. Thank you.
Back to you then.
Thank you. So the next item then is the first quarter of this financial year. Again, presenting the information there. The most notable thing is, and this is something that I've previously raised at the committee meetings, where people are aware of unlicensed operators and unlicensed taxis in their area. It's really important that they let us know about those, so we can investigate it. The key priority for us is to make sure that people who want to work in this industry have undergone all of the necessary checks, so we can work with them to make sure that they're all legitimate. But following the previous committee meeting, we did have a tip-off from a member of the public about an operator who was accepting bookings for journeys and taking people without a license, and we're preparing a file for prosecution on that matter. So just wanted to feedback and thank that member of the public publicly, and we will take action where we receive reports of this nature, and encourage anybody else, if they're aware of this kind of information, to report it to us. And it will obviously be treated in the strictest confidence and anonymously. I think that's everything there, but as you can see, obviously we've done lots of checks. Oh, the other thing that I did want to mention was that we did some good work with the schools in Whitwick and Womburn, and we were checking. So for many people, particularly with children with disabilities who have difficulty getting to school, the local authority has a statutory duty to provide transport to get those children from home to school. And most of the time they're using licensed private hire vehicles or taxis to do that. So what we were doing is going and checking those vehicles to make sure that they were all compliant. And unfortunately, on this occasion, of the 9 vehicles we checked, one of them had a tyre that didn't have the sufficient tread depth. Obviously, that's not acceptable, and the vehicle was suspended immediately. This is a part of an ongoing wider project related to tyre safety. I think I mentioned before, we invested in some laser tyre tread readers that we go out and we do a free quick check of the vehicle's tyres, because if the vehicle's tread is below that 1.6 millimeters, that means that it takes longer for the vehicle to slow down when you put the brakes on, particularly if the roads are wet. So we encourage all motorists, not just the licensed trade, to check their vehicle's tread regularly and to make sure that their tyres are safe, because it will reduce the likelihood of them basically going into the back of another vehicle. So yeah, that's some of the work that we've done with the local schools as well. Thank you. Happy to answer any other questions.
Benny?
Thank you for the report. I was pleased to see you check the school vehicles, and I trust the necessary restraints were in those vehicles for the children as well, car seats and so forth. I was interested to see that the unregistered vehicles had a website, and I wonder if you do social media trawls to pick up some of the websites that these people have set up without license. We have a number of Facebook pages in our communities, as you know, and sometimes these people are advertising online without any member of the public actually realising they're not registered. And I don't know many people who know how to check that actually as members of the public, whether they're registered or not, if they don't understand to look at the plates on the vehicle. So I'm just wondering if you do any trawling to try to find anyone.
Thank you. Yes, I can confirm that we do look through the internet, and you are right. It is actually difficult, and sometimes we struggle ourselves because. So what we encourage operators to do is to advertise who their licensing authority is. I've just made a note there that I'll reiterate that to the licensed trade to publicise, and we can create a little logo for them to say that they're licensed by South Staffordshire Council. And that should hopefully put some public confidence into the website. But yes, we have that difficulty as well. So we might find a website, and then we have to check with other councils, neighbouring councils, and say, do you license these? Because unfortunately, there isn't a national register of licensed operators that can easily be checked. And certainly, obviously, the Facebook groups, we do look at those. That is a problem as well, because sometimes there are legitimate businesses that are using Facebook to advertise, and that's obviously not a problem for them. But I think it's definitely these, what we would call lifts, when you see people offering paid lifts on Facebook and you think, oh, that doesn't look like a real company, that we would encourage people to report them. But on both of our websites, the Wolverhampton and the South Staffordshire website, there is a register of licensed operators, and that covers all of the businesses operating in these areas. But some businesses are obviously nationwide, and they can be a little bit trickier to check. But if you use one of the businesses that's listed on the South Staffordshire Council website, you'll know for a fact that they're licensed then.
Just one further thing, and that's about the driver's own license that they're supposed to wear. Has progress been made in sorting that out? I know we spoke about that earlier, so that drivers had to wear some visible information.
Yes, so obviously they all have their current driver badge. We do have there's a contract in place for the smart badges, the one where you will be able to tap them. Unfortunately, we have a little bit of difficulty with our IT in terms of integrating it. This is because nobody has ever done this before. There's no council in the country that has these badges that link to the online register. Which is, it's good that we're pushing the boat out, but it does mean that we're in uncharted territory, and it's a little bit difficult to see how long things are going to take. But we're very keen to progress that. We are in a contract. We're paying the money basically to the company, and basically there's an incentive for us to get that rolled out as soon as possible. So we're having regular meetings with the company. I will report back when we've rolled that out.
Andy?
Just a quick, when I'm sure in one of our previous meetings we discussed about the bookings by people and how they were notified of what the vehicle was or what the driver would be in the registration. Have we actually moved on with this now? Is this actually in place now, Greg? So when someone rings up to a taxi from Wolverhampton to Penkridge, for example, they reply presumably by a text message to them saying, yes, the vehicle will be a blue Toyota, registration so and so, and the driver will be XYZ. Has that actually moved into that process now, Greg?
That would require a change of the license conditions to kind of force operators to do that. And if we are going to change the license conditions, that would be the ones that are going to come before the next committee. But I think that what it's probably best to do is, rather than perhaps instruct operators on how they can best communicate with their customers, is provide the operators with the flexibility on what method that they communicate the booking to the passenger. But it is a requirement that they have to note down the driver's name, the driver's vehicle, the passenger's name, the passenger's vehicle. So already in place, if any passenger wants to contact their operator to find out who's going to be coming to collect them, the passenger can already contact the operator. But in terms of operators communicating that information directly to the customer, if they're going to do that at a later time, not when the booking's originally made, I'm not sure whether or not that would be appropriate to prescribe exactly how that information is communicated, because I think unless we kind of get regular reports of this being a problem, that the passenger can't work out who their driver is, that it might be a bit unnecessary and burdensome for the operators to be implementing new text messaging systems that do this kind of thing, or even to create new apps.
Just a second. The reason why I asked that, Greg, was because I was told that by somebody in Sutton Coldfield, oh yeah, they ordered a taxi, came back to them on the message, the name of the driver and the registration of the vehicle. Maybe they already do it, and maybe whether it's a major thing or a minor thing, I don't know.
Yes, I think it just depends on which company that you book it with. What we have to be very mindful as well is that the operator license conditions apply to businesses of all sizes. And I think that I wouldn't want to propose to the committee that you approve something that is quite expensive for somebody who's just starting out. So your one-person vans who are just out there setting up. If we were going to say, right, you're now required as a condition of license to make sure that there's an automated text messaging facility in place to do that, that might be quite difficult as they're trying to grow their business. But certainly it just makes perfect business sense, isn't it? If your customers can't get to your vehicle, then there's not going to be any money paid, is there? So your interests are aligned as both operator and as passenger to be able to find each other. Otherwise, you won't stay in business very long if your passengers can't get in your vehicles, can you? So As I say, I think that occasionally there might be the odd problem, but I think generally the trade, this is an area that the trade does deal with pretty well.
Be guided by you then. Great, thank you.
Councillor Burnett.
Thank you, Chair. Greg, apart from the well-known taxi app, there are loads of other taxi apps now available that you can use. So my question is, are these taxi apps run by a company which then works with a large fleet, different companies, or do different companies own their own taxi apps? How does the system work when you, some of them got strange names, and I won't give the names obviously in the meeting, but when you actually go on there and you book it, how does the system work? Are you booking with a booking company that then sources it from a taxi, or are you going directly to the taxi company? And the second question is, how much safer is this than just ringing a minicab firm normally? Is there any benefit? Is there any loss to it? Thank you.
Thank you. So my understanding is that it's a bit of a mixture in terms of the app-based technology. Some of the operators, they do create their own bespoke app. Some of them go out to a company and help them to do it. And I think from you can tell some of them that you use, they look very similar to the other ones. So I think that some of them you can kind of pay a license fee and you can use their technology, and you might have a few different operators using the same app. In terms of the way that the information is stored and recorded, obviously you've got the app there, but the information always gets to the operator so that they can accept the booking. In terms of safety, I mean, it's difficult to gauge exactly how you would measure safety between them or not, because there are so many other factors. But generally, I believe that there are benefits in having the digital written record, because if you've made a booking over the telephone, there isn't necessarily always a written record there. Whereas if you've got something on writing and you've got that saved on your phone, if you did need to make a complaint, you might be able, it's better for you to have proof of that booking, proof of the individual there. It's not to say that there's any problem with making bookings over the telephone, but I think we can all agree that when you're paying for any service, it's generally beneficial to have something in writing as a proof of purchase. And again, that obviously provides a bit more accountability for the operators. But again, we have some operators who operate via telephone call only, and that's perfectly safe. There's no problems there. And if people are comfortable, many people prefer to use a telephone than an app, and certainly those companies do cater to that type of customer who would rather speak to somebody when making a booking. And sorry, if you wouldn't mind as well, just wanted to touch on something that the previous councillor mentioned about booking the operator advertising on the website. I'm actually pleased to announce that we worked with Trading Standards to get that website taken down, which we've never done before. So now you can no longer access that website. So it's no longer accessing its services. The one that we believe was operating in an unlicensed manner. So that's another tool that we'd kind of not really realised that we got until we started looking into it. We said, can we get this website down? So again, providing further protection. And unfortunately, websites do offer that veneer of being official, don't they? People say, well, they've got a website. It looks more credible then, doesn't it? So we've removed that. That's not there anymore either.
Any more questions?
It's not actually a question, it's a comment. I think it's true to say that since we've transferred our taxi licensing services to Wolverhampton, it's provided a much better comprehensive service both for drivers, operators and customers, and I think that it's been much more beneficial, and you can offer more services than us as a much smaller concern could ever have offered, and I think it's been really beneficial, and I hope that we can move forward in the future to continue with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm very grateful for your compliment.
Yes, I'll second that bit. It sounds a little bit fabulous at the moment, so I'd ask you all if there's any more questions, so I can note it. You're all happy with this? Okay,
Yeah.
lovely. Mike? Okay, so we're moving on. And once again, Greg, thank you very much for your time. Moving on, I'm going down to number 5, the revocation of the air quality management system at Oak Farm. So I'm going to move over to Lee. Over to you, Lee.
Thank you, Chair. Afternoon, everyone. So the purpose of this report is to consider and hopefully approve the revocation of the air quality management area, our only remaining air quality management area, which is at Oak Farm on the A5. As members will, I'm sure, be aware, as a council, we have a duty to sort of monitor air quality within our district. It's a duty on us by government regulation, and it's governed through a sort of government air quality strategy, which in itself sets objective levels for various pollutants and contaminants. The main one for us across the district has been nitrogen dioxide, and historically we had 5 air quality management areas across the district where there was exceedances of the objective level. Over the years, with various strategies and sort of improvements in engine technology, road structures, infrastructure, despite there being an increase in traffic, it's kind of offset by the sort of environmental impacts really of cleaner fuels, cleaner technologies. And we've seen all of our air quality management areas fall well under the objective levels, and that's been sustained for a number of years. In the case of Oak Farm, as I say, it is our only remaining air quality management area, and that in itself, again, is for the past 13 years been under the objective level set by national government and national strategy. Because of that, we're required to review our sort of approach to air quality monitoring and management, and it also is kind of a requirement for us to revoke any areas that no longer hit that trigger. Saying that, if it is revoked, it doesn't mean that we stop doing any sort of air quality monitoring, air quality management. It just means we sort of focus on different areas, so we can look at new and emerging risks, new pollutants. So one of the, so particulate matter is one of the sort of emerging issues, and to sort of help with that, we've got some new equipment, so that we've got a fixed air quality monitor that specifically monitors particulate matter, so the 2.5 and the 10s, and also we've got some handheld monitors which we can take out and do sort of relatively quick assessments, but again that will just help us identify any new or emerging issues across the district, and then we can focus our efforts on that area. If this proposal is approved, it will require us to review our local Staffordshire air quality strategy, but as I say, that's where the sort of change in approach. So the diffusion tubes that we use to monitor nitrogen dioxide will remain, so they're across the district. They will remain just to keep an eye on things, but we'll also add in the sort of particulate monitoring. And as I say, if we do sort of see any emerging trends, any new issues, particularly with some of the larger developments that potentially bring issues our way, we should hopefully identify them early, and then we can address them through different strategies. So the proposal, as I say, is for you to consider that report and hopefully to approve that final revocation. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you, Lee. Any questions? Gary?
Now I'm on. Lee, with the small particulates, so you're talking about obviously the new housing developments, possibly one in Millbrook. So what length of time will you be looking to monitor large development in terms of days, weeks? Will you be looking to do readings before anything happens, readings after the trucks and everything start moving the building materials in place, and then readings after the construction has ended? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, councillor. So what tends to happen with the sort of larger development plans and proposals is they submit as part of their documentation and their application an environmental management plan, which would include how they're going to deal with dust emissions and obviously the impact of traffic during the development and also post completion. What we will do is obviously scrutinise that as part of the planning process. The particulates that are of interest to sort of national strategy are the PM10s and the PM2.5, so they're the really sort of sub-visible particles, but they're the respirable ones. So although what we see from development is dust and that kind of thing, that's not really what the air quality strategy focuses on. It's more the inhaled. Basically, those particles are too big to inhale. But yes, we would look at it and manage it through planning conditions and also monitor once development is complete.
Penny?
Thank you. In view of the interest in the general public in cleaner air, cleaner and less pollution all round, including all our resources, I really feel this is something which we should be taking a strong interest in. We have very large developments coming both in housing and industry, and it's very obvious to us all that in the future we need to be very vigilant about these. So I'd welcome this proposal, and I think from my point of view, every member of the public who has an interest in clean air and pollution would also say to us, we need you to do this because we are being subject in the future to big industry with the I-54. We've got the rail link, we've got all kinds of things happening which will only increase, we think, possibly with the new government as well. So I think this is a very good idea.
Thank you, Penny. Any more questions? Rita? Use your microphone.
It's gone off again. It's just a comment, just to say that it's important to reassure people that this revocation only applies to Oak Farm. And if the concerns in the future, it doesn't preclude monitoring of other areas. And as has been said, that may increase in the future because of the very nature of what's going on in the district or may go on in the district.
Thank you, councillor. I'll second that one. Any more from the floor? Gary?
Just one more, Lee, sorry. Would you supply parish councils who are going to be taking a lot of housing in their district with NOx tubes? Would you be fitting NOx tubes before and after the building themselves? I note that we did ask for NOx tubes to be fitted on the Bilbrook Mill estate when it was first under construction, and I think one was allowed. Are you happy to allow more if or when the next phase of building is allowed, so that we can have particulates and NOx tubes?
Yeah, I think we would look at the data that we're getting already from the tubes and the readings that are coming in from the existing network. But there's no reason I can think of that we wouldn't agree to sort of increase that in accordance with sort of big developments. yeah, I can't see that being a problem at all. Obviously, there's a cost associated with analysis of them, but it's doable.
Rennie?
I'd have to ask now what a NOx tube is. I've no idea. Gary knows what that is. Oh,
Sorry, yes. So my apologies. NOx tube, it's basically a little plastic tube that's got a membrane in it that basically holds onto nitrogen dioxide. That then goes off to a lab and it's extracted and various analysis bits done on it, which gives you a level of nitrogen dioxide that's been in the air over the period. It's normally about 4 weeks that it's exposed.
Any more? Now then I'll move to the proposal for the revocation of the air monitoring management area number 5 at Oak Farm. Could I have a proposal, please?
Would like to propose this application.
Could I have a second, please? I'll second it. We all in favour? Thank you very much, councillors. Just a little note to Lee at the end there. Very good, Lee. Thank you for that. Comprehensive scientist. Thank you. Moving down to the last on the items, number 6, I could like to turn over to Laura, who's probably been sitting there nice and peacefully being a scientist. If a report on the manager from the Environmental Health and Licensing. Come on, Laura.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. The summary of the report and proposal is to introduce the committee to this year's food service plan, and to update you on the Food Standards Agency recovery programme following the impact of the COVID pandemic on the local authorities inspection programme. The recommendation that the committee approves the service plan and makes any comments and observations. The Food Standards Agency Framework Agreement set out mandatory guidance on local authority food safety performance and service planning, and recommends that the food service plan be submitted annually to members and portfolio holder for approval. And it also provides the basis on which local authority will be monitored and audited by the Food Standards Agency. The service is committed to ensuring that all food stored and manufactured and sold within the district is safe and without risks to health. And through that work, the consumers are empowered to make informed choices on in relation to the food they purchase and consume through the promotion of the Food Standards Agency National Food Hygiene Rating Scheme. Through the work that the food and safety team includes undertaking food hygiene inspections, interventions, allergen awareness, infectious disease notifications and investigations, food sampling, health and safety enforcement work, animal welfare licensing and licensing enforcement. So the work is varied and involves undertaking inspections, investigating complaints and accidents, service of formal notices and or instigating legal proceedings. The team have worked hard to achieve 100% of the high risk inspection programme for food categories A to D, and in addition a proportion of the lower risk category E premises. New businesses have been included in the programme throughout the year, and high risk businesses have been visited for inspection. So during 2020 and 21, the pandemic had a huge impact on the delivery due to the redeployment of staff to COVID enforcement duties. The FSA developed a recovery plan to be delivered for the period of July 21 to 23 and 24. This plan aimed to ensure that during the period of recovery from the impact of COVID-19, local authority resources were targeted where they added greatest value in providing safeguards for public health and aimed to safeguard the credibility of the food hygiene rating scheme. So South Staffordshire's Council's Food Service Plan 23-24 reflected the recovery plan and highlighted the work undertaken in the previous year. It's necessary to note that during 2023 and 24, the team have fulfilled the requirements set out by the FSA targets in the recovery plan and have now completed inspection of all due and overdue category 8D premises, apart from 2 premises that were unable to be accessed due to them not being trading. In addition to this, remote and telephone assessments were undertaken with some businesses where there were instances this information became outdated. A rated inspection visit was undertaken. And the discussion, it's useful in some cases where it enabled more discussion to take place with the business outside the inspection setting. There does remain a significant proportion of the E-rated low-risk premises which require an intervention during this year. So the main considerations are the requirement of the annual food service plan for member approval and recommendation is the framework agreement for the local authority food law enforcement issued by the Food Standards Agency under the Food Standards Act in 99. So once approved, this plan will form the basis on which the council delivers the statutory functions. The most significant risk, ongoing risk is to the resources required to deliver the recovery plan. Pardon me, we've already delivered the recovery plan. Trying to deliver the plan this year is sufficient resource in tackling the inspection programme in line with other priorities, namely animal welfare licensing programme, involvement in event safety advisory groups, and also expectation of work from central government, potentially inspection of funeral homes within the district. In addition, the implementation of an electronic management system is also in process, which will take some resource from the team, and those interventions in premises that are lower risk. Resourcing will be closely monitored and be reviewed if necessary to ensure the completion of the work programme. Other service pressures that might be unforeseen major incidents, for example, future pandemics, infectious disease outbreaks, major food alerts or incidents, major health and safety incidents or accidents, and these risks are moderately likely to occur. The work programme and staffing will be adjusted to deal with these emergencies if they arise. If we do not, the risk that may arise if we don't take up these proposed decisions would be audit and intervention scrutiny by the Food Standards Agency and a risk to public health and unregulated food businesses. The main risk to the service is maintaining adequate resources to deliver the programme. And as described before, any potential requirements to assist in public health work, but this will be managed and recruitment of temporary staff will be considered if it is necessary. Submission of the annual plan is appropriate for member approval is the recommendation of the framework agreement, and once approved, this plan will form the basis on which the council carries out our food safety services. Thank you, Chair. Any questions?
Any questions from the floor? Penny?
Several things. Would you like them one at a time or in groups? First of all, there was a reference in the documents about funeral and care homes. What on earth are we going into funeral homes for? Is this because they do catering for some groups within their funeral homes?
No, it's actually not to do with food safety. So the wider work of the team, including health and safety and public health work, there's been a ask by central government to look at our funeral homes within the district to gain some insight and information on the care of the deceased and traceability of the deceased. You may be aware of the incident that happened in Hull. I think it was either early this year or last year, or towards last year, and this has caused some concern, obviously, for the government looking at an unregulated sector. So the ask is to go out and just basically visit these homes and provide any feedback and make sure that we're happy that things are in place as much as we believe they are, because obviously it's not something that we've dealt with before, so it's more of a reporting back exercise.
Secondly, I noticed there's 2.5 staff and the workload is increasing, and you've got nearly 900 businesses to look at, which which seems phenomenal. And I'll compliment you on the presentation that was made to us, a few of us, on the food safety before. As far as I'm concerned, I have to compliment you on your professionalism and the way in which this post-COVID report has been structured and the way in which you've caught up finally with the inspections that were overdue. Do you have enough staff? Because 2.5 to me on 900 businesses doesn't sound to me adequate.
Thank you. Yes, one of the positive things I think sort of moving forward from this year is that the backlog of all those inspections that were outstanding has all now been completed, which has left us in a relatively good position with the food inspection programme this year. So even though there are sort of nearly 800 plus businesses, the majority of those are low risk businesses, approximately half those are low risk, which don't require an officer to actually go out and do an on-site inspection as such. So we're trying to focus our risks obviously on the higher risk ones. And this year we from what we've planned out, we should have enough resource to do that for the year. Of course, depending on the year and the amount of inspections and what else comes in, that has to be analysed every year to decide whether we have that resource. But for this year's service plan, it does look like that we should be able to achieve that, what we need.
Next, I've been to a couple of food markets recently, and this is about allergens, celiac daughter. So the question really is about where food is being served where the stalls are not a temporary license kind of event. And I noticed there was a massive food poisoning event at Western Park, with sandwiches. And I think we are becoming increasingly aware that people are not advertising either allergens on their food stalls if they're serving at live events, nor are they labelling so that people can make the distinction. And most of them seem to have a very tiny notice about this big that says if you have an allergen, please notify the staff, which isn't to me adequate notification. What can we do to improve those things?
Yes, allergens is a challenging area, and one of the challenges is that it does fall between ourselves and trading standards for what we're responsible for in enforcement. So environmental health, we look at the sort of the cross-contamination as such in the kitchen rather than the labelling. However, we do know that our colleagues in trading standards are very short-staffed and more so than maybe we are to get out and about to businesses on a regular basis. So it is something that we have as an intervention on our inspections, that we do bring it to the attention of the food business, and we advise and we guide them and we give them those sort of training resources, etc. If we do have concerns and if there is something that we think needs further action, we refer that on to trading standards as their remit, but we have done joint work with trading standards as well on allergens. It is something that is more and more important and prevalent as we're going out on inspections, and it is something that we do focus on, but we just have to be careful that we are dealing with the right thing that we're actually authorised to do as well. In regard to sort of temporary premises, it is again something that's picked up if we go out and we're doing inspections on those temporary premises, and it's something that's also part of their food hygiene rating as well. So it is something that's becoming more and more sort of on inspections. It's something that was more and more discussed, and the importance is placed on that food business operator. But I have to say it is a challenge, definitely.
I don't know whether this would be possible. Does our authority have a standard notice that could be issued to people in these kind of circumstances? And is there a prescription on the size of notice which should be displayed, or the wording of it that people could then readily recognise, so that they know that they're dealing with a registered operator? operator, because most of these businesses are not advertising their registration or any kind of details except what they're selling.
To just clarify, do you mean that they're registered with a local authority and the food hygiene rating rather than an allergen notice? Yeah. So on markets, if we're talking about social markets and temporary, so what will happen is if they're not, if they don't reside in our district, they'll be registered with another local authority who will have given them their rating. And generally, most markets won't let anything sort of below a 4 really trade on their premises. So there should be some reassurance in place. There isn't actually any legislation or anything we can do to make them display that or display their registration at present. It's one of those things that I think it's definitely gone through in Wales. They have to display it as it's an offence not to display. It's not something that we've got in this country at the moment. And there isn't a requirement to display their registration, but there is, if there are queries about certain operators and certain markets, it is something that we can go and proactively look at. That's not an issue.
In view of what you've just said, it would be a good idea if we wrote to the government and asked for this to become a necessary requirement. And in view of the size of the types of events that we're going to be having within our district, I think people would prefer to know that their business they're dealing with is registered. And we should have some sort of standard notice we could issue to them anyway, even if we just do this as a local authority, so that they can feel assured that they are dealing with a legitimate business.
Yeah, it is something. So if we have an event in our district, we ask for all their food hygiene ratings to be provided to us. So we won't allow, unless we've got them registered, they won't be allowed on site. And it will be something that an event organiser has to prove before they're allowed to trade. So even though there isn't something visible to the customer, as a council, we are aware of who's there and what. So there shouldn't be any traders that aren't registered or aren't legal if we've got control of that, as we are in events.
I appreciate what you're saying, but there's very little to stop for instance, a local pub adjacent to an event providing an outside legitimate store within their curtilage, for instance, and then the public not understanding or recognising that as being attached to the pub. So I think things do occur sometimes off the cuff, which we're not aware of. I'm just interested in trying to make this as safe as possible. The other thing that concerns me is that new businesses here are not required to register. The report says when we become aware of new businesses. Now, I think they ought to be required to register myself. Everybody who wants to open things clearly needs health and hygiene regulations to obey, and I don't know why they're not required to register rather than waiting to become aware of them, which may be a bit too late.
They are legally required to register. I apologise if that was worded as it shouldn't have been. What we're trying to say is there is a legal requirement for them to register within 28 days of trading, which is on the government website and it's freely available. However, not everybody will either know it or they won't do it. So we have to have that awareness of what's in the district, and it's something that we do proactively if we see a new business or if we're notified by any other means, internet complaint, etc., or if we're out and about, we recognise, oh, that looks like a new business. We will make sure that they do register. So we will obviously proactively approach them to say there is a requirement for you to register legally, and then they will go to the inspection programme.
My further comment to that is, if they're operating for 28 days without a licence, I don't think they really should be, and there should be a requirement to register immediately if they're going to open a business, so that we can make sure they're complying with the hygiene regulations, at least. Lastly, I just want to speak to you about COVID. As I've just found out in the last week, 3 people have got COVID in my village. Clearly, there's an outbreak in France, as you know. I think there's obviously after the holiday, you can expect this to ramp up. How prepared are we for another COVID outbreak?
Good question. As as a sort of food and public health, health and safety, we just get directed by government on that. Obviously, we will respond to anything that we're asked to respond to. There hasn't been any inference of any extra measures being taken at the moment. It's still public health, and the NHS is still treating it as another respiratory disease. There's no requirement for testing. There's no regulation there, so we will just respond. That's all I can say, as required, as we're directed to, if need be. But obviously, we've got experience of it now, so we should be able to get set up quite quickly with what we need to do.
Thank you, Penny.
All the answers to the questions.
Gary?
Thank you, Chair. Now that a lot of food businesses seem to be doing more deliveries than over-the-counter sales, how is that impacting how food safety system works? I'm just thinking, thought just occurred to me, for instance, the delivery person who takes it out, if the food was contaminated, could the company, who knows what could be contaminated after it leaves the premises? How does that work? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The food business as a legal entity is responsible for that food until obviously it arrives with the customer. So third party sort of delivery drivers that take food from that premises, it wouldn't, I can't imagine that they would ever have any sort of responsibility under that, if that makes sense, because it's still under that business's control as such until it's delivered to the customer. Thanks.
Megan?
Thank you, Lucy. I would just like to say, when we talked about the staffing before, having been out with your team, I don't know how you do cope with it all. I was absolutely in awe of you, because I never realised there were so many food venues, and I didn't realise how much came under the umbrella of your team. Not just food, it's everything else and everything that goes with it. So I think you do a really good job, and please relay this back to the team, all of you, because I think we have some good members here in Staffordshire, and I think your team particularly, that they do a sterling job. So thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Chair. See, we were one of the lucky recipients. We had a visit because of obviously the community cafe and doing things in there. And yes, and a very thorough and good experience. I spent a lot of time on my hands and knees, I said to you, making sure everything was as clean as it could possibly be. But a question for you, and this is in the report, is tattoo parlours premises. How many have we actually got? Or have we got a record of them? And this virus that's going around, what does it do? Have we got that at all?
Thank you, Councillor. Interestingly, yes. So what we have every year is we have a sampling protocol that comes from public health, and as part of that, we're looking at tattooist premises, and it's all to do with Pseudomonas. It was an outbreak in some, I think it was liquid soap. So we're looking at sort of soap and water samples and environmental samples. So we have recently put the list together. And there's around 25 tattooists throughout the whole. So there's quite a few more than we realise. But obviously, I have to say that list may well be out of date. So it is something that when we go out, we'll be updating to to make sure we've got an up-to-date list, and then we can also look at their infection control measures while we're there as well.
Is there any more questions? Rita?
Said this many times I've reported to council that people do not realise the vast scope of what comes under your umbrella. And I think it actually increases as time goes on. I think it was last year when we had a big discussion at one of these meetings about tattooists and some of the services that are offered that we didn't actually know what they were, but we've got to go and look at them to see if they were legal and what was being done. So I thank you for a very full and informative report, and there's some steps and pass my thanks on to the team. And can I just say, going back to the funeral homes, I think that's sort of on hold because you're waiting for more clarification, aren't you? So although you've got things in place to actually go out and doesn't sound very nice with it and inspect, but I know it's on hold because you're waiting for clarification. But that's something else that you haven't had to do before. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Rita. I'd just like to add my thanks to Laura. A lot of praise to live up to, and some kind of a star. Whatever. But if I could ask for a proposer, please, if you've all finished, for the Food Inspection Programme 24-25.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to approve this. Thank you.
Well, from the chairman, I'd like to say thank you all. Very informative, Penny. Glad you didn't bring your computer. And what are you laughing at? This is the first committee meeting that's had a little chuckle. And I'd like to thank you all for your attendance, and I would like to thank the teams that I've got around me here on my side here. They're wonderful, and we all know that. So onwards and upwards, and from that, it's just for me to say thank you and good night, good afternoon.